Well, hello everybody. I'm so pleased to be here with you. It's 5 o'clock in the evening here in the UK. It's turning out quite a dull evening, unfortunately, but I hope it's nice and bright wherever you are. I've managed to sit in on a few of these sessions so far, and I must say the content has been fantastic. Hope I don't let the side down. I have to say that I hope I've had my bad luck beforehand, because I closed Excel down just a little earlier, just to have everything nice and clean, opened it up, and it crashed. It totally corrupted my file. Luckily, I had a slightly earlier version, but it didn't have some of the latest explanation in it. So bear with me and we'll try and get through it. So, who am I? My name's Roger Govier, as I said. I live in Wales in the UK. You can read that screen as well as I can, but basically, I've been involved with spreadsheets for a long time now, and really enjoy them. And I hope this afternoon we're going to have some great fun. That's what it's all about. What am I going to talk about today? Well, my first and favorite way of analyzing data is with pivot tables. Nice and easy, no formula to type, few quick clicks, and you've got your report. However, many people don't like pivot tables because they don't automatically refresh, or because they don't understand them and think it's a black box where all the calculations take place. We've been able to create CrossTab reports for years now by using functions like SUMIFS or SUMPRODUCT, but then you have to copy formula across and down and change the criteria when you change row or column headings. With the advent of dynamic arrays, all of this becomes much easier. I'll show you how to create totally dynamic CrossTab reports. I should add that I'm a very lazy person, and I hate having to even just type a change in the formula. It really grits on me, so I try to avoid it. So what functions and features will I use? Well, the main functions will be some of the new dynamic array functions, which only exist in Microsoft 365. So some of you will not have those yet. They are becoming more and more available as Joe McDade and the team over in Redmond release more things to the wider audience. So this will include unique, sort, transpose, and sort by. You've heard a little about that from some of the other speakers. I'll also be using some of the existing functions which occur in most versions, including indirect, SUMIFS, and choose. Now, I have to say, indirect has always been a hateful thing to me. Like offset, I absolutely detest functions which are volatile. But in the new DA world, indirect doesn't seem to be quite so bad because it doesn't occur so many times. I also make use of named formulae, which are created on the Formula tab with Name Manager. People call them named ranges, but I tend to call them named formulae because it's a formula which is defining the range that you're setting. But you can also do other things with named formulae. And so we'll have a quick go through that because that's going to be essential to understand how I work. You'll be pleased to know that's the last of the PowerPoint. I also hate PowerPoint. So now we'll switch to Excel. In this file here, I have got I've got some data to look at. This is fairly standard set of data. It's just rubbish data that's been created by me using a round between and then some index match to pick up names and products and dates and things to go with the data. Now, normally, if I wanted to summarize that, I would just click anywhere in the table. I would say insert, pivot table, bang, to a new sheet. And if I put name in the row area and I go and put product in the columns area and I put value into the data area, I've got a report. Let's just insert a column there to push it across, make it a bit easier to see, and we'll just widen it out a little bit. Okay, so there's my report done, not a single formula typed, and I've got a CrossTab report. I've got names going down as the row headers, I've got products going across as the column headers, and I've got my data summarized. And if I wanted to change the view of that data, and instead I wanted to have, instead of name here, I could go and drag region to here, and I've changed it. I haven't altered the formula. That's pivot tables, but we're not here to talk about those today. We're going to talk about CrossTab reports, dynamic CrossTab reports. Now I'm going to do the unusual thing. I'm going to show you the result first. So we're going to start at the end. So I'm going to show you where we're heading, what we're going to end up with, and then I'll go back and go through the stages of how I built the whole thing up from the bits and pieces to get to the final. So the final thing looks like this. So here we've got our column headers, which are product, we've got our rows, which are people, and we've got our data summarized. Except in this case, of course, all my totals are at the top of the sheet and they're on the left of the sheet. That's where totals belong. I absolutely detest totals being at the bottom. I hate it when you've got to go scrolling down to find where your result is. And especially on some of the small screens today, looking at things on tablets and on phones, you very often find that you're always having to scroll, and I hate it. This is where totals belong. Right, off the soapbox, Roger, back on with the talk. So here, I've just made it so we can select whichever year we want for the data, and it changes over. We can select what we want to be going down the column, down the row, so we'll choose color, and I've got product going that way. So now we're analyzing the phones by the color of them. We can decide what we want to look at for our data. Do we want to look at the value, or do we want to look at the quantity sold? So we can work back and forth. Oh, at the moment, by the way, I'm setting my calculation I can see is to average. I don't want average, I want sum. And equally, if I go back to having my value here, it's the tuples value of all the sales. But, you know, if I want to know what was the minimum, well, what's the min for each of those? Bang, there we are. So nice and easy, just like with a pivot table, and perhaps even a little bit better than pivot table in some ways, we can get our reports, and I'm not changing a single formula, I'm just clicking and selecting. The other thing I'm doing is I'm allowing to sort by different methods. So here I've said sort the row by value descending. I could make it ascending instead. So we got the lowest color sales at the top and the highest color at the bottom. We got the product sorted by name in ascending order. So we go from BlackBerry through to Samsung. But I could equally say I want that sorted by value, and I want it to be sorted descending. And let's put that one back to descending as well. And oops, did I do that right? Yes, I did. Right. So I'm seeing my highest selling product. Oh, that's back to min. I don't want min. I want that to be the sum. There we are. Right. So I now see that's my total revenue. That's how it's going down by color, and that's how it's going down by product. But let's get rid of color from there, and let's go back to, let's put product there instead, and let's, if we go going down the way, and let's make our column color. Now we've got the analysis of our phones by color or whatever. So that's what we're going to end up with. So how do we get there? Now, again, not to confuse any of you, I've got some tabs at the top of my screen here, which are different workbooks I've got open. My normal data tabs are down the bottom, just like all of you. This isn't a new feature of Excel at all. I have got an add-in called Office Tab, which I find absolutely marvelous. I can switch it on or switch it off. So now it's gone. Now it's back on again. And it's a lovely product, and I find it very useful because I'm always working with lots of different files. So I can flip back and forth between my files nice and easily. So before we start on how we do it, let's I want to show you how I use name formulae to create dynamic ranges, not only with data in lists, but also with tables. I want to show you how name formulae need not only refer to dynamic ranges, can be calculations. I want to introduce some of the new dynamic array formulae. I want to talk about the new kid on the block, who we'll be seeing shortly, and then the outline of the CrossTab report, and finally back to where we were just now, so we can see things. Oh, I hate the cursor being this cross when I'm doing that, so I sort of usually flip it back to being an arrow because it's easier to point to things. Much easier when I'm training or giving presentations. Okay, so here we've got that data, but in this case, it's in the form of a list. It's a straight list, and here's the same data, but in the form of a table. So, but when we only had lists, we had to create dynamic ranges in order to be able to do things. So I have got here, need to create some name formulae under Name Manager to create dynamic ranges if you want to analyze with a pivot table or make it easier to write formulae to calculate totals. Now, all of my names, I start with an underscore. And the reason for that is it makes it nice and easy. If you're trying to use the autocomplete in the formula, so if I was trying to do something like some ifs, I can then do, oh, I've not got autocomplete on. Oh, never mind. Never mind. I'll show that again later. Underscore FR is first row and underscore FC is first column. And I'm doing that by matching true or 1 for not is blank data in column B, because that's where my first column is. And first column, I'm matching the same thing, true, not is blank, in row 3, because row 3 is my first row of the data. I find the last row and the last column, again, by doing a lookup, looking up 2 for 1 over not is blank and 1 over not is blank in that case. And I think, as Liam showed in his very first presentation, lookup is a great feature, and you can use that, and it's very, very good because it will show you the first value that does not exceed, or the last value that doesn't get us to thing. So looking up 2 in a set of data which has got 1s in it, it's going to find you the last one. So it'll find the last row and the last column. There are other ways of determining last row, last column, or you could use count A on one of your columns to find how many rows there are. But anyway, having done that, I then created a range for the whole table called dynamic range data. And that was just indexing. I just chose row 1 to 10,000. You could do 1 to 1,000,000 if you wanted, starting with first row, first column, colon, and go index the rows again for the last row and last column. And so if I went to my name manager, trouble with name manager, it's so small, you've got a job to see anything in there. But if I click on that, that goes and picks me out the information. Now, of course, because I've gone and typed in some more data on that row, it's taking me out further than it should do. That's only because I've gone and put this description in. So don't worry about it. It's not going to matter in this context. So I can then actually also define the different columns. Now I've had to use month 2, value 2, name 2, etc. because on this tab here, I've already used the names month, name, and value. So value 2 just is simply indexing data list J, column J, so that's here, starting at the first row plus 1, because we don't want the header, and going to the last row. So value 2 defines the range of data only that sits in that column. Same thing for month, same thing for name, same thing for product. So now, just having a formula in this cell And I put it out to the side here to make it easy for you to see rather than having to look up here in the formula bar. All that is saying is sum value 2, and there's the total. Nice and easy. Similarly, if I go and put a couple of names here, and I put a couple of months here, I can then have a formula in this cell which is saying sumifs value 2, where month is equal to the value in cell P26, which is this cell here, and where, sorry, month is equal to this cell here, and name is equal to the value in column N, row 27. I've had to put $sign to lock the row if I want to copy it down, and the $sign for the column N if I want to copy it across. But nice and easy, very simple formula to write, and much, much easier than writing it out, having to use the whole long names. Alternatively, when you create name formulae, if you create a name formula for the header, then you could just index the whole of data range data and pull the column you want by using a match on the header. So I created one called dr header, which is just index dr data, comma 1, comma 0. Because when you don't give a column to index or use a 0, then it will give you the whole of that row. And when you don't give a row to index or use 0, then it will return the whole of that column. So dr value 2 is index the whole of data, comma 0. In other words, I don't want any rows, I just want the whole of the column, but I want it to match the word value in what I've defined as dr header. So it's just easy ways of creating things for picking up your data. But most of the time these days we're dealing with data tables, and with that you don't have to use those, because ranges, you have to use dynamic ranges for things like pivot tables. Otherwise, when you added extra data, that didn't get reflected in your pivot table, even if you did a refresh, because the range wasn't holding all of the data that you've now got. When you use data tables, as we have today, as you well know, if you add another row to the bottom, then it will automatically grow the table in length. If you add another column, it will automatically grow the table in terms of its width. So you don't actually need any named formulae with tables, but I do use them because, again, I find it nice and easy. So here's that same data set, but it's in the form of a table, which is called underscore TB sales underscore 2019. Again, like all my named variables start with an underscore, so my tables I always name underscore TB, because it's nice and easy to be able to get that list on autocomplete. Let's see if I can get that to work this time. It's probably because I've switched my cursor over. Let's put it back to what it should be. And if I type in here equals some ifs, and I do underscore, yes, you can see I've now got all the things which start with an underscore. So it's nice and easy to be able to point to whatever you want to pick up. So if I want to pick up, in this case, it would be value. Just click on that, and I can say comma, where underscore name, comma, is, well, let's just use that value in there, bang. So what have I done wrong? I didn't complete that underscore there. Sorry folks, it's my fat fingers. Comma, underscore name, I didn't click on it, is equal to that cell there, and if we hit enter, and it should pick us up. a figure. So nice and easy to type the formula without having to type things in. You can just point and click. So that formula in there is just simply some TB sales 2019 value. But if I just type in there equals sum underscore value, the same figure. Much shorter formula, nice and easy. Let's just copy that down, and there we have it. So, you know, it's easier, it's shorter to read, and I find it much easier to use. So in the same way here, we've got sales for Simon and Roger for January and February. There it is as a long formula as far as I'm concerned. But you can also give named formulae to columns of a table. So simply by naming underscore month as TB sales brackets month and name TB sales brackets name, we've now got this, which is much shorter mouthful than having to speak out that great long thing. So here I've got exactly the same thing where I've said sum ifs value, where name is N21 and where month is O20. So much easier, much easier now to type out all that lot or read all that lot. So those are just the ways that I tend to use named ranges, and you'll see I've used them a lot in my final solution. So let's move on now to some of the new dynamic array formulae. We're going to look at unique and we're going to look at sort. And how am I doing for time? We're 23 minutes in. Okay.
You've got plenty.
Thank you, Liam. You keep an eye on me because I tend to rattle on and forget to put time altogether.
You're doing brilliantly, Roger. You're fine.
I'm using formula text to just show what I've got. So that's showing you the value that's been written in that cell there. And I just said equals unique, table sales 2019, name. And it's given me, out of the 3,000 rows that are in that table, the list of unique names that occur there. Now, you've probably heard people speaking already about, because this is a dynamic array, that little outline is showing you the spilled range that dynamic array formula is taking. Now, if I went and typed in the word hello in that cell there, I get a spill error. And that's Excel telling me, Roger, you're an absolute twit, because that formula you've put in there, I want to extend all the way down here, but you've gone and put the stupid thing in the way. Now, if you get rid of it, then I can behave as I should behave, and I can give you the answer. So unless you have a clear run in the direction it wants to go, you will get that spill error. As Guy Hunkin said in his earlier presentation, that formula there in the first cell, you can see that's black, as you'd expect to see a formula written. But if we look at this cell, you can see it's grayed out because the formula does not actually exist there. You can't edit it, you can't do anything with it. That is the only formula that's used to give that complete set of data. Now, in exactly the same way, I've done the same thing here for product, and I've got a list of the products. The other function which I want to deal with here is sort. Now, you can pass other things to sort. So if I wrap sort around my unique table sales name, I've now got those names sorted in alphabetic order, going from Barry through to Sue. But if I sort will also allow me to show it in a reverse order by putting a -1 on the end. So I've now got it going from Sue down to Barry. So we can sort our data in either way, either ascending or descending. I've copied a little section of the data across here just to remind you what the data set looks like. And I've called this one TB short because it's only a short amount of data. But what I'll just show you before we leave that one, just to show you that everything here is dynamic. If I went to my data table here and I replaced Barry with Zach, and I replaced Sue with Alan, and I went back here, lo and behold, I've now got a Zach in the list and I've got an Alan in the list, and they're coming at the beginning because they happen to be the first ones that Unique came across. But when I do my sort, of course, I get Alan at the top when it's sorted ascending and Zach at the bottom, and equally around the other way. So it does instantly respond to any changes which are in your data. You haven't got to press refresh or do anything else whatsoever. But of course, there are two definitions of unique. In the examples above, we're showing just the single instance of value from a range which contains multiple instances of those values. But some people say that list is not unique, and unique items are just those that occur once. So the full syntax of the command is unique array, the range of data from which to select unique items, by column, false or omitted, gives you the rows, but if you put a 1 in there, it would give you the uniques across a column. And if you say true for or 1 for exactly once, or 0 or omitted, it would give you all. So you can see here now, because I said unique table sales name, comma 0, comma 1, the 1 is saying I want the exactly one, so it's only found Zach and it's only found Alan. And I've sorted it there, so I've got it Alan and Zach. Now, I'm going to turn those things back to Barry and Simon again, only because my later examples will come in the wrong place because I didn't have Zach and Alan in there. And now, of course, I get a hash calc error, and that is because there is not a single unique value. So that's why I'm getting a hash calc error. So we needn't worry about that for the moment. Equally, the full syntax for the sort function is the array, the range is to be sorted, the sort index, the row number or the column number to sort by, the sort order, the direction you want it sorted, so it's 1 for ascending or -1 for descending, and by column, you can sort the data. Normally, you'd leave it as 0 or omit it altogether, and that would sort by rows, which is the normal way you want to sort data. But if you set it to true, it would sort by column. So here's that same little short set of data as we had up here, but I've sorted it by column 5, and it is now showing me in ascending order by product. So the whole table has been sorted just on column 5 on product in ascending order. This one here, I've said sort that, comma 1, comma, comma 1. So I'm sorting the whole table using row 1 by column. So the headers are now sorted alphabetically across instead of in their original order, which is date, name, customer. I'll just have to have a swig of water as I shall crack up. Thank you. That's better. So sort's a very, very, very clever and very, very useful function. Exactly the same as you can do by clicking the sort button on the top of a table, but you can now do it through a formula. Sort by. Now this is another lovely command. And I was talking with Joe McDade, who is the senior program manager who led most of the teamwork on dynamic arrays. And I happened to say I was using sort by. And he said, "Oh, you make use of that?" I said, "I do." He said, "I'm so pleased because I had a real struggle to keep that in the product. People said, why do we need sort by when we got sort?" Well, I'll show you exactly why it should be there. And thank you, Joe, for keeping it in. So here I've got my unique list of names again. Now, alongside that, I put a sum-ifs formula. I've just said sum-if value from table sales, where table sales name is equal to the values or the names in this range. So here we've got the total sales for Barry, the total sales for Simon, etc. So now, if I use sort by, I'm sorting these names by the values which are held in this column. So now we've got Barry coming first because he sold the least, and Roger coming last because he sold the most, because he always would, because he's the best, and his wife is second best. But there we go. So it's not truly random data. This data was biased when I set it up. I got to show myself in a good light sometime. And equally, as we've done there, we can sort in reverse order by putting a -1 at the end. So now we've sorted these names by the values, and we've got the values. This is not necessary, this column here. I've just shown it to show that it is truly the highest numbers at the top. But basically, once you've created some other method, you can sort by that and needn't be part of the same set of data. And the sort by function is better than that as well, because you can sort the array by another array and choose a sort order. And then it need only by one array. You can have multiple. So as you keep adding them, so this list will drop down. Don't ask me how many you can go up to, because I don't know the answer. But you can sort your information by multiple arrays, which need not necessarily be within the same table or even just referring to the one column. Moving on, transpose. Now, with the old calc engine, we always...
Sorry, Roger.
Yes?
We've got a couple of queries. It is now a little time. I made myself a tea. We've got a couple of questions from our regular Mukesh. Are you happy to take them now?
Yes, that gave me a chance to have another swig of water. Thank you, Mukesh.
No, it's fine. It's okay. I stepped away for a tea myself. It says Mukesh asks two questions. He says, first of all, if we have blanks in the data, then how to handle it while using unique? And the other question sort of with that is, does sort and unique work even if a blanks or errors are in some cell of the column? I've published them both in the Q&A so you can see them.
You know, I've never bothered to test that. We'll find a bit of time at the end and we'll give that a go and see what happens.
Sounds a plan.
I've never tried it. Because all my data is always perfectly. As you know, I never have errors in my data.
No, neither does anyone else, Roger.
Anyway, very interesting question, Mukesh. We'll have a little look later on. So I'll just crack on now with transpose for a moment. Oh, or was there a second question, Liam?
No, those two were related. I asked them together there, so that was it. But thank you.
That's fine, thank you. Right, transpose. Well, in the past, we could have had our list of names here, and I've just typed in 5 names. And what we would need to do, we need to select the equivalent number of columns. So we've got 5 rows, so we'd have to select 5 columns. And then we would have to type in equals transpose B6 to B10, that's where our data is, and we would have to commit it with Control, Shift and Enter, and that would put the curly braces around it, which would tell Excel, old Excel, this is an array formula, and we would get our answer. And of course, if we change Don to Roger, then it just changes in the list. Fine. So that's transpose. But now, in addition to the 3 new dynamic array functions I've already shown you, there's a new transpose function. And any of the functions can be wrapped inside transpose, but without any need for Control, Shift and Enter. We don't need that any longer. Dynamic arrays, you just press Enter. And we haven't got a pre-selected destination. So, transpose. Transpose sort unique table sales 2019 name has now put that list of names going across the page instead of down the page. And similarly, I've done the same thing here for color. So we've now got color going across the page instead of down the page. So we can transpose the whole of the formula as shown in cell 19. Now, with a unique list of names in cell B29 for our row headers, and I've just coloured that blue because that's the one which is the array formula. These are just the spill range from it. So now we've got that in there, and in C, no, again, this is where, I'm sorry, where I lost my file and I'd inserted some rows, what I've typed in my script here, and that's just typed in, is different to where it now is. I apologize for that, and that's because of the little crash I had earlier. But anyway, basically, we've got a formula here in C29, which is our spilled array going horizontally, and we've got one here in B30, which is our just the sort unique names. So as you can see, we basically got the column headers and we've got the row headers that we would need to be able to create a CrossTab report. And the way in which we would do that would be, traditionally, we would say equals sum ifs. And what we want to sum, we want to sum the value where the underscore name is equal to the value we've got there. And because we want that to remain a constant as we go across, we put a $sign. And then we want the underscore, well, we got product, comma, to be equal to the value we've got in C, and we want that row to be locked, so we put a $sign there, and we put the figure in, and we get the value. And as we've always done in the past, we would then just copy that across, and we would copy it down. That's just the text box I put over the top of it. And there we've got our CrossTab report. So that is traditionally how we would have done it. And we've only used dynamic arrays just to create our list of headings and our list of products and our list of names. But, you know, if I wanted a different report now, if I wanted to look at region and something else, or I wanted product by color, I'd have to go and change that formula. And as I said earlier, I'm lazy and I hate doing that. So we've got to find a better way. So anyway, let's just move on now to something which is a bit more dynamic. No, this is where we start to talk about the new kid on the block. So who's the new kid on the block? Well, there's our formula again, dropping down, giving us that. But in this cell here, I've just typed equals C14 hash. The hash, that's the new kid on the block. The hash symbol after the cell address effectively defines a range, which runs from C14 to C27? No, C25. I must have had Zach and Alan in when I typed that. Anyway, the symbol tells Excel that this is a dynamic range, and that is the spill anchor, or the top left cell of the spill range, which the dynamic array formula produces. Now, clearly, if it's a single column, top left is just going to be the top cell. So there we are. But that C14 hash defines that range there just as much as any named range or named formula that we might have given it, as we were showing earlier on. And it behaves in exactly the same way. So I could say index C14 hash, comma 8, and that will give me, well, I put a comma n there, the nth element, which is Roger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait, it is Roger. So index will work on just that C14 hash and return us the 8th member. Now, if we utilize these new ranges with the use of our new friend, the new kid, the hash symbol, we can create a lovely CrossTab report. So now, again, these are just the formulae which are there, typed bigger. I hate sitting through presentations where I cannot read the formulae on the screen. And my eyesight is getting pretty poor these days. So I've made this nice and big, and I do hope all of you are seeing this the same size as I'm seeing it through the Teams event. But anyway, I've also done some coloring. I've colored the cells, which are the dynamic array cells. So that one there is just the sort unique sales product. This one is the transpose sort unique name. And this one here now, instead of putting the formula to say C36 and D35, by putting the hash after it, our new kid, that's told it the dynamic range, that's a dynamic array that's been produced, is the whole of that area. So it's gone in, it's a 2D range now. And in just the same way, if I went and typed hello into a cell, Excel objects and says, oi, there's something in my way. Will you please get rid of it? Because I don't want it there. I can't fulfill my function. I can't spill out to the right and I can't spill down. So please just get rid of it, move it somewhere else, and then I can perform. So now, instead of creating a SUMIFS formula in cell D36 and with the relevant locks on row and column number, and I'm to drag it across and drag it down, by just putting that one form in there, the formula in cell D36 which is a spill anchor for the 2D range, which runs from D36, which is there, to O42, which is there. And as we saw earlier, you can index that if you want to. So index D36, 3, 7. Now this is where this might not be the same now because of me having to change to a different thing. Oh no, it looks like it is. So this is saying index D36, 3, take the third row and the 7th column. So the third row is 1, 2, 3. It's the row of iPhones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which is 22,423. Exactly right. Because that's Mandy, because she's indexed that cell D35, 7 is Mandy. So in every way, this new kid on the block is just the same as defining a named formula to define a range, and it is no different. You can index it or do anything else. Now, moving on, because we've used name formulae to determine our ranges, we can write the formula more simply, just as Roger wants. Roger doesn't like long formulae. Roger likes short formulae. So SUMIFS value, where product equals C57 hash and name equals D56 hash. No, name 2 there, should be name. Anyway, and that gives us our dynamic array. But the thing is, now, if I want to have that not by name and product, or if I wanted name this way and I wanted product that way, I would still have to go in and change the formula, because at the moment, that's the way it's looking. And as you know, Roger doesn't like typing formulae all over again. So let's go back now to our dynamic CrossTab report, and let's see what I did to actually make it work the way it did. I'll have another drink a moment. So Liam, if there's anybody else with any questions, perhaps now would be a good time to ask.
Sure. We've got Gary. If you name the anchor cell of a dynamic array, examples C14 is named as name, can you then refer to the spilled range as name hash rather than C14 hash for easier readability?
Yes, you can.
And if you want as well, Roger, I'm happy, because I'm conscious of the time here. I have been playing. One of the great things is the luxury of time while Roger's just drinking his water. Mukesh, if you recall earlier in the published questions, asked about can you sort unique works on blanks and errors and things like that. I've been doing that now. I can't share my screen because I don't have dynamic arrays on the computer that I'm going on deliberately because of sometimes instability. The answer is I put some data in, I put some numbers, I put some blank cells, I put some blanks with spaces and some errors. And the order is as follows. The numbers get sorted from smallest to largest first, then cells that have got space in them, and it's sorted on the number of spaces. Then it's the letters of the alphabet. Then it's the errors in alphabetical order after the hash symbol. And then a blank is treated as a 0 at the end. It is what it appears to be on dynamic arrays, just to advise you. I've just been playing with that. And I just want to make another point on that as well. If you're using sort and unique together, please, as someone who sees this a lot, always do unique first and then sort it. Has that given you enough time to have your drink then, Roger?
It has indeed, Liam, and thank you very much for that.
No, so you got about 5 minutes left, my friend.
Right, that is exactly the order that I would have expected. So that's good. Anyway, so how did I do this? Well, we've got a couple of things behind the scenes here. Let's first of all look at some names, my good old names. Now, in my original file, I got a little copy of what the things look like from the top of that area there, and I've got something on a thing called DV lists here to make it easier to understand these, but I lost it. But anyway, I've got a thing called source, and that is whatever occurs on the sheet tab DA report in C2. So that's what the user has selected as being the source. And then tables is the list of table names which exist, and that's whatever's in B5 on DV lists, and then count A plus 2, because I got 2 blanks at the top. So that is here. So if I want to, I can drop another table into here, and without changing any formulae whatsoever, this will work. So it might be a lot of work to create this to start off with, but having created it, it'll work with any data table you drop in. Table headers. This is where I've had to use this indirect, because we got to make up a name which is DV list, whatever's in D2, plus an open square bracket, and then the headers row, and then a closing square bracket. Now, that text on its own, Excel would not understand as a formula. So we coerce it into something which Excel does understand by using it, by wrapping it in an indirect. Headers is whatever I've got in DV list D5 hash, which is this cell here. That's my spilled range, because I want to use that for my drop downs on here. So the the data validation on there is just headers, so we can go and select from each of those. Then row is whatever I'd selected the source to be, plus a bracket, plus whatever I'd selected in cell C3 and a closing bracket. So it's picking up product, but wrapping it with sales 2017 and an opening bracket, then a source, then a closing bracket. So we've got actually the column name. And the same thing applies to all these other ones. But also, I've got a thing called calc, and that's a list of the calculation options, which are here, and the ones I've chosen are sum, count, average, max, and min. And this use is looking at what the user has selected he wants to do, and then it does a match to find out which one. So because it's sum, it's 1. If we chose an average, that would be saying 3. So that's allowing us to make our different selections here and choose what method of calculation we want. But the other thing which a lot of people don't realize is that you can put formulae into a named formula. So I've got a whole series starting with my underscore again, and it's got an F, so I know it's a formula. So formula average is equal to average ifs data, where row is equal to, forget that, it's because of my crash, so that's corrected. But anyway, it's picking up the relevant row and the relevant column. So we've got average ifs, count ifs. Count ifs, of course, we don't need the data, we just do the rest of it. Max ifs is exactly the same as the average ifs, as is min ifs, as is sum ifs. Otherwise, we just change the max and the min and the sum and the average, but all the ifs part and the rest is exactly the same. So that means that the only other thing I need to show you is that also I've got here on this a section, again, looking at the choices made on the report. So if on the report they've said ascending, make it a 1. If it's descending, make it a -1. And that's for the row selection. So there's what we've currently got in row in its order. There's my little sum ifs for the values. And because the user has chosen descending, it's put the highest value product at the top. So the iPhone, the Samsung, then the one, and so on. And this is doing exactly the same thing for the column section. So going back to the report.
Sorry, Roger, I'm going to have to wrap this up in about a minute. Just letting
Right.
don't want to rush you, my friend, but I'm just conscious of the next session.
Well, there we are. So therefore, the magic is in this cell here. The magic formula is choose, use, and use is whatever the number is that corresponds to the calculation method. So if it's 1, use the formula called fsum. If it's 2, use fcount. If it's 3, use faverage, 4 fmax, and 5 fmin. And that's how I've managed to make all those things work like that. All this is extra text on there just describing what's going on. You wouldn't have that on your report. Your report is only this part here. And just like Liam does with his fancy graphs, all these names are dynamic, so it will change according to what you've chosen here. So if I change that to name, then it's saying it's a CrossTab report for name by color. And if I change the color to product, then it's name by product, and the data is relative to whichever year I've chosen. So it's 2018. The rows are sorted by value descending, columns sorted by value descending, and the data is calculated as sum. Whereas if I went there and I chose average, it's telling me it's average. And that, my friends, concludes it. I have to end by going back to the thing I hate, PowerPoint. And evaluations, please, please, please do your evaluations. That's very important for the organizers of the whole event. And equally, Microsoft is very keen to have people help them with their research. So if you're interested in taking part, please do. There's a link there for me to contact them. And that's it, folk. I can be contacted at roger@technologyforyou.co.uk, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Roger. Greatly appreciate. I'm really sorry to wrap it up, but I think this is one of the things we can say about all the MVPs that I think a lot of us would happily do 55 hours on our own. It's a lot of work put into that one. I can tell from just how there's putting them in. And thank you for making all my stuff look pretty amateur there. Thank you, Roger. I appreciate it.
Not at all.
Mukesh has come back again and says he presumes you're happy to share the file too.
Yes, I will. I will try and get the proper file with the extra thing and the right references in it to you sometime after the event.
Brilliant. Thank you, Roger. I appreciate it. Cheers. Right. I'm going to take the screen back now, and I have to do this the right way because I'm about to put a video on as well. So just indulge me while I get it all up. So thank you very much to Roger. That actually concludes 48 hours of this going on, the Excel Virtually Global. Can you believe it? We're about to go into the very next session, which will be Leila Garani, who will be on a bit to take questions at the end. There'll be a recorded video first, but if you want a quick comfort break, I'll be starting again in seconds with solving complex problems with Merge in Power Query.